So we are here atop this 1,000-foot driveway. This is our first project with the driveway this length. We're going to be speaking about the coordination, logistics, all the pre-construction planning to get utilities here. As you can see that house here at the bottom of the cul-de-sac, from that street all the way up this driveway. What goes into that? What are we putting in? And how is that achieved? Check this out. One of the biggest challenges is we sat down and designed. Fortunately, through some amazing realtors in town, they introduced us to these incredible clients from out of state. And they had this property. We came up, we did some site walks. We brought in our architecture firm, which was Cosan, Scott Carson with Cosan Studio. Logistics in the very beginning was understanding, okay, we have this amazing 6,000 square foot house, 14 private acres, cantilevered off the mountain, right? How are we building this pad into raw terrain? As you can see behind me here, this is essentially what the hillside looked like. Again, that had all the boulders. We didn't have as much rock, but we knew we'd have hard dig. We did a soils report. We understood that there'd be a lot of clay and granite in this hillside, which essentially means we can't dig that with a normal shovel, on the end of our big equipment. We have to bring in a special jackhammer, this jackhammer in the hillside. We're not using dynamite on this hillside. We knew that we'd be using the big jackhammer. And again, that can be very costly. As you look at a hard dig, right? When they bring out that big equipment, you're typically over $400 an hour. That's something we track, and that can add up very quickly. So the soils report is really key, especially as we're looking at this long trench we're going to be doing that's 1,000 feet up the driveway. We have our building pad here as we're building the house, especially we knew at the garage that cuts into the mountain, that garage, we knew we'd hit hard dig there just by our soils report, because the soils engineer comes out and they're going to drill test, do these core samples all throughout the entire hillside, some up to 20, 30 feet deep, which gives us a really good idea of what we're going to be up against for construction. This also really helps the engineer and structural component to know size of footings, width of footings, right? Are we using some of the natural terrain, which means sometimes you can use some of the granite as a support structure with the concrete footing. Again, this is over my level. I'm not the engineer, but our engineers have specified that in the past. However, there's a lot of coordination, and so logistically, we have to understand code, right? For code in Scottsdale, what if this house catches on fire? How does the fire truck get up the driveway, and can it turn around? And so we're going to take you up to the pad in a minute to show you how we factored in the fire truck access. But getting back to the utilities, we have a huge run here. As you can see, this is 1,000 feet coming up from the cul-de-sac right here during construction. Because we haven't dug the utilities yet, you can see the water tank here. Because the water pressure is somewhat slow, right now, because we don't have water up here at the top of the house, we have this massive tank here. You can see that's a 3,000 gallon tank. And so this can slowly fill, up to the top, just like a water tower would. And now we can optimize that pressure, for any water. And this was really important during the rough grading stage as we're moving dirt and trying to control all the dust in the air. But now the site, so as you look at this, because of the length here, we have many things coming up. We have sewer, right? We have electrical, we have our low voltage, and we have water. Those four components are coming up the house. And so because of, the length of runs, we have to have clean out. So you think about a normal house. If you look outside your front, typically in the driveway, maybe the front of the house at some spot in the landscape, you'll have cleanouts, 4-inch cleanouts. And this really, if there's a plug or something's backed up, it's an access point where the plumber can come in, they can snake the line, they can go through, maybe even camera it if need be to clear that, for any access. So we have multiple cleanouts all the way down, 4-inch cleanouts all the way down for the sewer. Now, something that's really important to think about with sewer is the drop. And by the drop, it means, as you think about just getting in the weeds a little bit from a plumbing, you have to really have a good plumbing engineer that understands the MP&E, because the reason being, on a hillside, which we do a lot of, if that plumbing comes in too steep, what ends up happening when you flush a toilet, the water or the liquid will come racing down, through the piping, on the exit of the sewage to the house. However, the physical matter, the solid matter can get backed up, especially if it's too steep, because what ends up happening is the water or the liquid goes much faster than the solid content, and that can create backup. So it's really important that when you're sloping down a hill, even such as this one, that we have a nice gradual decline for the sewer. So now solid and liquid can be disposed of equally together, which will keep those lines clear. Again, very important as you're looking through that. You can't just come a steep drop. So make sure you're looking at that with your plumbing company and inspecting that they're installing it per plan. Now we also have pull boxes, right? Think about electrical. The amount to pull electrical line 1,000 feet, it's cumbersome. You have to have trench boxes or pull boxes, which essentially are junction boxes, so you can pull lines and you can have stations where now you're pulling the wire to each of these stations. So we have to plan for those to hide them. Yep. So now with the paver driveway, in lieu of concrete, what's really important about the paver driveway is a couple things. We have to make sure that the amount of over excavation and recompaction of our underlayment, and then our sand bedding, right, the thickness of that's all dictated to bring up the heavy fire trucks and vehicles that'll be consistently accessing up and down this property. And then the edge banding, and so by that, essentially like a footing, we have concrete on the edges, which now support the edges of those pavers. So we don't have any deterioration over time from either water, erosion, as water's coming down the hillside, or even vehicles maybe driving on the edge there. So that's really important. And again, the width, right? You see the width of this driveway is pretty wide, more than a normal hillside, and then we have some access there around the side so the fire truck can get up. And what's really important is this is the case for any hillside build, especially in Scottsdale or Paradise Valley, is that the city has essentially, think of it like a circle or a diameter, very similar to like ADA if you're working in an ADA compliant commercial project or residential project where you have to have wheelchair access that can come in, turn around, and access the sink, the vanity, and the bathroom. Very similar to a fire truck, on the driveway side. So as the fire truck comes up, not necessarily a 3-point turn, but ideally the 3-point turn, so you're not like Austin Powers trying to back up 500 times. But essentially the fire truck can come up by the garage, they can back up here to this masonry wall, that's our radius, and then they can turn and head on down the hill. So again, this has all been surveyed, it's been factored, it's been measured in accordance with all the regulations there. So now a fire truck has access if they have to come up the hill, and which is really important. We also have fire sprinklers, which is required by City of Scottsdale, but regardless, we have to have access for any emergency vehicles that may come up here. And so now we have this. This was really important too, because one of the benefits for us as a builder is I was concerned about staging. As you get up to a hillside, it can be really tight. You have access, and there's points where we'll have a ton of vehicles up here. So the vehicles that have to be up here, that's a lot of coordination for us on the scheduling side, that will bring up the vehicles that need to have full access, they can park up here. Some of the commuter vehicles or some of the trades that don't need access, they can come up here, drop their tools, park down the hill. We have some parking off of the main driveway here, which now allows us staging, right? To get the material, drop lumber as we had to do, drop trusses, have a crane up here, and now keep this open so that grading, or here Paul's been good about bringing our grader to keep this level, and that way we have as much access as possible.